After a surprising season in 2022, the UConn Huskies took a little bit of a step back in 2023. A 3-9 season for Jim Mora Jr.'s squad wasn't what they wanted, but they have plenty of hope for the 2024 season. The top 10 returning players we'll talk about today are a big reason why, and there's a number of guys that are under the radar, underrated players that deserve more love. We'll actually start on the defensive side of the ball. This is a team that had some flashes of good play and then mostly struggles, which we're accustomed to seeing. But a guy like Price Yates is going to command a lot of attention from the opponents they face. 14 tackles for loss last year, 4.5 sacks. At 6'4", 265 pounds, could be a player that is getting more attention at the NFL level. UConn's had a couple of players in recent memory on the defensive side of the ball that have garnered a lot of attention, and Price Yates could be the next guy there. If he is able to be disruptive, that opens things up for guys around him. You just hope that this staff has identified and brought in talent that can help him out. On offense, this is where things get interesting because there is going to be a lot of talent on this offense, but will that mean production? A guy like Cam Edwards, 618 yards, 4 touchdowns in a backfield that will be one of the better backfields in college football. You have to find a way to finish better than 90th with the talent you have returning. Now, granted, a lot of that has to do with the offensive line. A lot of that has to do with what does the passing attack look like. And obviously, you take a hit with Taquan Roberson leaving, but Cam Edwards returning along with his partner makes this rushing attack that deserves a lot of respect. And teams will respect that, which is why they're going to give a lot of attention. But when your passing attack finishes 104th, the rushing attack is going to struggle because teams don't really respect what you're trying to do through the air. And Edwards' partner this year is Victor Rosa, a guy who's had tremendous success so far with the UConn Huskies. And this is a great duo for UConn. This is a group that will thrive this year, assuming you get some help in the passing attack because the offensive line play, I believe, will be solid. It's just a matter of do you have the balance in your offense? Because if teams are stacking the box, it's not going to matter how good your running backs are. You're just not going to get the job done. But again, I really like what this group has coming back. Edwards is really fun to watch. Rosa's been a really good player for them over the past couple of years. So you have proven talent that knows how to make an impact. It's just a matter of can you get them where they need to be? Can you give them opportunities? Can you give them the space to make plays? Because we've seen what happens when these guys get in space and have running lanes to go through. It's really only a matter of time before they break one free, and that's good for an offense that could be really fun to watch despite the talent that they lost this year. We talked about what Price Yates needs to be successful. A guy like Jelani Stafford could have a major impact on Price Yates' success. When you look at what he did last year, 8 tackles for loss, the sacks aren't going to jump out at you as he had only half a sack. This is someone who's more of that run stopper, who's going to be a tough player to move in his gap. And he's a big reason why this group finished 57th last year. That was a bright spot for a team that finished 3-9. Stopping the run was a strength for UConn, and that should be the case again this year. If you can get the passing defense to be a little bit better, again, both offense and defense need to address the passing game. If you're able to do that, and granted, if Bryce Yates is given opportunities to get after the quarterback, then you're going to see a much improved team. Speaking of the passing attack for the offense, Brett Buckman has a great opportunity in front of him this year. When you lose a couple of key players in terms of Justin Jolly and you lose Cameron Ross, Brett Buckman gets the opportunity to be that go-to guy. Now, granted, you're working with a new quarterback. You need to find a way to be consistent. But when you look at what he finished third on the team in receiving, this means that you're looking at someone who could have an even bigger year. 488 yards last year, 2 touchdowns. He's going to be the focal point of the passing attack. And obviously, depth will probably be a concern. But if you find a way to gel with the new quarterback, you find a way to get this passing attack to take a step forward, this offense takes huge strides. Delmont Gordine is another player up the middle. And when you look at this defensive line for UConn, it's a tough group. And again, it's just another reminder that this was the 57th best rush defense in college football. And it's easy to see why. Gordine and Stafford are two of the better interior players that you probably will see in college football, and I'm probably just more underrated than anything. These two are really fun to watch. They're disruptive, and when you look at what they're capable of doing, they'll do their job. It's just a matter of can everybody else get on track and get on the same page? Because if they can, UConn's going to be a fun team and an underrated team that might surprise people. Tuifamina Brown is a linebacker that comes in and he gets to go behind that defensive line we just talked about. At 6'2", 221 pounds, you're not seeing the biggest linebacker, but he has a good frame to handle life in the trenches. And again, we talked about how good this team was against the run. Um, he's going to benefit from the defensive line being as good as it is, because when you have guys that are eating up blocks and giving you better lanes to find the ball carrier, that makes your life easy. And you have to tip your cap to the defensive line, but the linebackers also have to make those plays. Just because you have an easy tackle doesn't mean that it's guaranteed tackle. And he's someone that is going to do exactly that. He's going to make that play. And again, when you look at this defense, it's hard not to get excited if you're a UConn fan. I know that hasn't been a lot to be excited about outside of 2 years ago in recent memory, but last year gave you kind of that bad taste in your mouth. And when you have the talent that you have coming back, it's easy to get excited because you know that last year was so bad that you can just expect even average play could be considered an improvement. And this defense, again, when you look at what they have coming back, I can see why fans would get excited about what this year could be. The quarterback that we mentioned before is Nick Evers. Now, granted, he comes in from Wisconsin after transferring from Oklahoma, and you've yet to see him attempt any sort of pass, any sort of play in which he's not playing garbage time. But I think the talent is still there. 6'3", 196 pounds. He gets an opportunity. Again, Roberson's departure opened up a huge opportunity for a player like Nick Evers. And if he is the real deal, if his talent is truly what everyone expected, which there probably are some questions after you transfer twice, but coming to a team like UConn, where the perceived talent is less than what it was at your previous two schools, you have an opportunity in front of you. It's a matter of finding chemistry with your receivers, and can you be consistent enough to help this offense? We talked about Buckman before. Another transfer coming in that will help Evers is TJ Sheffield, the Purdue transfer, originally committed to Michigan State out of the transfer portal, but all of a sudden decided to come to UConn. 381 yards and 2 touchdowns in 2023. A veteran for the Purdue Boilermakers that needed a fresh start. And when you're talking fresh starts, UConn is definitely a fresh start for sure. But can you be the productive player that UConn needs you to be? Again, this group finished 104th. You have a new quarterback coming in, but you do have a rushing attack that can open things up for you. It's just on the receivers and the quarterback to get that done. Sheffield is someone who can help in that regard. And if he is still the talented player that we saw at Purdue, UConn's going to have a really fun group to watch through the air. And finally, going back to the defense side of the ball, Malachi McLean comes back after maybe not the most productive year, but I think that you look at a player who understands what's at stake. He's a player who knows that this must be a better group, a group that finishes better than 99th in points allowed per game, a group that needs to finish better than 98th in yards allowed per game. And in terms of defending the past, 121st isn't going to get the job done. So McLean understands what's at stake. He understands what needs to be done. And when you're looking at this team and what could be, you're seeing a lot of excitement. Again, 3-9 is not exactly what they wanted, especially after the year in which you finished 6-7. You're looking for improvement. You're looking for a better season in 2024. And the talent you have returning and you brought in from the transfer portal gives you a reason to be excited. It's just a matter of turning that potential into production.